Check-in.
Together, we are Jalen and Jacoby. What do?
We get a people!
Yes! Yes! Are you okay? Are you okay?
What they want.
You're going to pass out one day, Jalen Rose. I'm so excited for this show. There is so much to discuss. The number one thing to discuss, Jalen Rose, it finally happened. Jimmy Butler, no longer on the Minnesota Timberwolves. He wasn't traded to the Clippers. He wasn't traded to the Heat. In a surprise twist, he was traded to the Philadelphia 76ers. The Sixers traded him for Covington, Saric, and a future second-round pick. Jalen Rose, how does Jimmy Butler change the Sixers?
A few ways. The Philadelphia 76ers now are a legitimate Eastern Conference contender by adding Jimmy Butler. They're not the favorite, however, but it gets them closer. When you don't draft well, yes, they hit home runs with Embiid and Simmons. But let's not forget, they also took Michael Carter-Williams, Okafor.
Just say his name. Just say his name.
Markelle Fultz.
Markelle Fultz.
Okay, and when you lose in the asset department and then you not only draft Markelle, but you gave up a first-round pick to get him, it hampers what you can do going forward versus a team in your same conference in the Boston Celtics that have drafted well and created assets. So as I watch Philadelphia, they got 3 of the best 6 players in the East.
Let me think about that.
Just think about it. And I'm speaking, and the other guys in the conversation are Kyrie, Greek Freak, and Kawhi. They got 3 of the best 6 players in the East. But you know what I love about basketball? That still don't make them the favorite.
Why is that? They've got a legitimate big 3.
They got a legitimate big 3. Probably only the Golden State Warriors can boast that.
We talked about this before the show. I think there are only 2 big 3s in basketball right now. And only 2 legitimate big 3s.
And that's fair to say. So now Philadelphia has catapulted themselves not only back in the contention conversation, but also the conversation of next big team that's going to get people to come play with them conversation.
Oh, I like this angle.
No doubt about it, because now when you look at Ben Simmons, who's unselfish, and a point guard at 6'10", and Joel Embiid, who's going to get me 20 and 10 and a couple of blocks and make threes, and Jimmy Butler is a lockdown defender that's going to also be clutch and give me 20-plus points, players are not going to want to play with them.
So here's the thing, though. First, Jimmy Butler has to convince the Sixers that the Sixers want to play with him. You know what I mean? So what's happening now is he's a free agent at the end of this year. He has a history of having, I wouldn't say trouble, but having concerns about some of his young teammates and voicing those concerns. He has a history of being just not the warmest, friendliest fella in the locker room. So the Sixers can give him the max at the end of this year. And it is expected that they gave away Saric and Covington because they plan to do so. Is he going to be on his best behavior? Is Jimmy Butler going to, I don't know, maybe swallow some of his real thoughts about his young teammates so he can get the max? I have the feeling that at the end of this year, he's going to sign the deal, and he's going to tell everybody what he thinks about him. That's how this is going to go. He's going to sign the deal. He's going to be like, come here, Joel Embiid. I'm deleting your Twitter account. No more Shirley Temple for you. Ben Simmons, you got to get in the gym. You got to get a jump shot the second he signs the contract. I mean, I see it playing out like that. Like this is like an audition year for him, and he's going to be on his best behavior.
And shout out to Elton Brand, who got this deal done so early in his first year as the GM. I understand what you mean about Butler, but look at it like this. Embiid and Simmons are better than Karl-Anthony Towns and Wiggins.
Oh, no question about it.
Okay?
No one's going to refute that.
And he gets to play with them in the East.
I know.
That's the conference that doesn't have the Golden State Warriors, which has you look on a piece of paper and say, okay, the Celtics are legit. The Raptors are legit. The Bucks are playing well. But now they're legitimately a part of that conversation. Now, just like any team, this is what I love about the game. They have weaknesses.
Oh, yeah. They gave away 2 of their shooters, and, you know, they got Jimmy Butler back, but they need a shooter.
Yes. I don't think they're done tinkering with their team, and I got a wild card here. Well, 2. Number 1, J.J. Redick is going to start to play better, get more minutes, and definitely deserves to be in the starting lineup. But you know when they're trying to feature guys. So clearly they were featuring Saric, featuring Covington, and trying to feature Fultz, but they realized they're stuck with him.
No one's taking Fultz.
But here's a wild card.
They could have added Fultz to that trade in Minnesota and be like, no, we're good. Don't worry about it.
Wilson Chandler. It's going to be a wild card that nobody talks about in this dynamic. They're going to be able to put four players on the floor that can switch everything with J.J. Redick. That's what I anticipate happening. When things get tough for Philadelphia and or it's crunch time, their best lineup on paper already for me, J.J. Redick, Simmons, Embiid, Butler, Wilson, Chandler.
Interesting.
He's going to play well with them. He hasn't really gotten the opportunity, dealt with some injuries earlier in the year. I think he's going to now elevate his game and be a rotation player.
Do you think that they add another shooter? You said they're not done tinkering with the lineup because J.J. Redick, knockdown shooter. You know, and obviously, you know, Jimmy Butler can shoot threes. Ben Simmons, not a shooter, like literally doesn't shoot threes.
So here's my hate-love for the league as a player that was once bought out. When Tyson Chandler's still in uniform for Phoenix and we already know he's going to L.A.
Oh, yeah.
So what's going to happen is what's happening with Kyle Korver. Start to look at all of the teams that are struggling, that have veterans with not so favorable deals to the team. Those guys now become buyout candidates. And so there will be people, there will be shooters, there will be opportunities to fill your roster if you're the Philadelphia 76ers.
And again, big shout to Elton Brand. There's nothing like you know, he's just getting the office set up, putting things on the wall in his office, and he's already got a big win. It's a great way to start at that new position. So let's now move the conversation away from the Sixers to the Eastern Conference as a whole.
Now I'm going to show you how the East Coast rock.
I had the Sixers as like the fourth team in the Eastern Conference, and that changes now. How do you have the pecking order of the top four teams in the Eastern Conference? My condolences to all Pacers fans and Wizards fans.
A blank canvas. I still have to say the Boston Celtics because I did see them make it to the conference finals without Kyrie Irving last year, and he's back.
Okay.
Gordon Hayward still struggling. The Toronto Raptors
look great.
Kyle Lowry has improved his playmaking, getting me double-figure assists
Everything
now.
I ever said about Kyle Lowry was wrong.
And obviously they have Kawhi Leonard. The Sixers are third based on what we just discussed. And don't dismiss the Milwaukee Bucks. They probably have the best player not only in the conference, but a front runner, gonna be one of the top players as it relates to like all NBA consideration.
Of course.
In the Greek Freak, I appreciate how Lopez has reinvented himself as a player that would post
really
up,
shoot threes.
that can now really shoot threes,
as we saw over the weekend. And quietly, no one talks about this. Malcolm Brogdon has really improved from last year.
Yes.
Malcolm Brogdon has been playing really well this year, and obviously Chris Middleton is having a little breakout year, going to be an all-star.
Absolutely. So those are the teams. Indiana's going to be in the conversation beyond that, but those are the top four teams in the conference.
So when I look at this, I just think, are the 76ers going to give Jimmy Butler this deal? Because that's, I think, for now it's not. When you see Paul George in a contract year, is he going to stay? Is Anthony Davis going to stay? What's going to happen with KD? Like, those are kind of obvious questions, but this one's a little different. It's like, are the Sixers going to want to give him 5 years, $190 million? Do you think that's a done deal?
I'm going to give you a different way to look at it. Yes is the answer to that question.
Okay.
Because of what I said to begin this conversation. They're in the same conference as the Boston Celtics, who, when you look at their roster, they're set now. When you look at their assets, they're set for the future.
Oh, yeah.
And they're going to be able to continue to have what it takes to bring in other great players that they see have potential to build on what they've done. So if you're going to be in a conference with them, you got to now go after the best players. And so that's what Philly's able to do. We have Simmons, we have Embiid, we have Butler. We have three of the top six players in this conference. That makes us a legitimate contender. Now, building out the roster, supplementing your weaknesses, getting shooters, all of that type of thing is going to come with it. But you definitely pay Butler because you already paid Covington $70. You traded him. You wasn't going to give a big deal ultimately to Saric. So you save that money and you give it to Jimmy Butler. And that's what Minnesota was thinking. Now, I don't think Minnesota did good in this trade, but let me tell you this. What they were thinking was, we're not a destination spot for free agents.
No.
So I want to get a guy that's already under contract.
Covington.
In Covington, that's a 3-and-D guy.
He's a prototypical 2018 NBA role player. Like,
no
he's
question.
Exactly what you want right now in the NBA. You're not going to have 5 stars to be your starting 5. I love Covington as your 4th best player in your 5.
And he's Tibbs kind of guy, self-made like Jimmy Butler was, came out of the D-League. And then Saric is a big that can shoot threes and stretch the floor. You put him alongside Karl-Anthony Towns. He's still on a rookie deal. I have assets as the coach that's also the GM that can put players out there, and Minnesota's actually going to be better.
You think so?
Have you seen Minnesota play this season?
I've seen him play with Jimmy Butler.
Okay, they're going to be better without Butler. These guys are going to give you more points. They're going to give you more three-pointers, and they're going to give you the opportunity to allow Karl-Anthony Towns and Wiggins to flourish who they want to build a team around.
What did Karl-Anthony Towns text Andrew Wiggins when he found out that Jimmy Butler was officially traded?
He's like, you still getting the max? I'm still getting the max? He gone? Cool.
When we come back on Jalen Jacoby, the Patriots looked very pedestrian against the Titans. That and much more from the NFL right after this.
When you don't like someone, you go at them harder. I don't care what anybody says. That whole I go at my brother harder stuff, no, that's not accurate. If Larry Brown was driving to the hole, I would file him different than Juwan Howard.
But I was wrong about something. I really thought Carmelo Anthony was going to be additive for the Houston Rockets. I thought he was going to be great for them offensively and hurt them a little bit defensively. Well, there's been a lot of conflicting reports over the weekend about what exactly is happening between Carmelo and the Houston Rockets, but one thing is very clear. It's not going well, and it really doesn't look like it's going to continue. There's been a lot of reports from inside and outside the organization that they will no longer be playing together. Carmelo Anthony has played his last game as a Houston Rocket. I have so many questions for you. But first, let's just listen to Chris Paul discuss it.
Melo's been great here, you know what I mean? That's like a brother to me, you know what I mean? So I don't know what's being said or whatnot, but Melo's been great, working hard every day, you know what I mean? So, man, Melo is a future Hall of Famer, you know what I mean? And that's me saying that, and that's knowing that. So, like I said, we'll see what happens.
What's going to happen next, Jalen?
So, anytime you hear former players or current players broach this topic, it's really sensitive.
Explain.
This is a really sensitive
This is sensitive?
topic. Yes, because in order to become a veteran, you have to reinvent yourself, which means changing. This is why some of your favorite artists that have been in the game for a really long time have had multiple nicknames. Look at Sean Carter. Look at Sean Combs. Like, these guys have so many different nicknames because they continue to reinvent themselves.
Does Carmelo need a nickname?
Players do this exact same thing. Now, everybody ages different. He was in the same draft class as LeBron James, who's still the best player on his team, and one of the best players, if not the best player in the game.
Okay.
Dwayne Wade, who played more years in college than both of them, who's in his final season and already acknowledged that he's going to retire.
Yep.
So right now, his career could go either way, okay? When you go to OKC, he scoffed at the notion of coming off the bench.
That was a year
right
ago.
there
That was a year
was
ago.
a bad sign. You go into that season, career lows in so many different categories.
Yes. They get bounced in the first round.
You get bounced in the first round, I'm not going to be here anymore. You and the team agree that this is not a good look. They trade you to Atlanta. That's not going to happen. You land in Houston. The first thing we ask is what? Is he going to finally come off the bench for the first time in his career?
And anyone who's followed the NBA knows that Mike D'Antoni and Carmelo Anthony have a history.
Correct. And so when we're asking how he's going to adjust to coming off the bench, his answer was, I'm willing to do whatever it takes for the team as long as we're winning. That's the underlying part. I think a low moment happened, and I had the remote control in my hand. Doom. At Oklahoma City, when he was struggling, couldn't get a field goal. The only basket that he got credit for was actually a goal tip. He was unhappy after that game, clearly, like all of us would have been, but he was more distraught because you start to now think of your journey. I was in Denver. I got out of Denver. I went to New York. Thought me and Amari was going to be able to do work. I did put up numbers. I'm one of the best players in Knicks history, but I didn't get the goal accomplished. Then I go to OKC. We don't hit our mark. I ain't going to Atlanta. Not the way they look.
Well, that was never the plan. So what happens now? What team does he play for now? What's the next chapter in his journey? Because it's not over.
And so now when you end up in Houston, you're put in a position to be the scapegoat regardless. Here's why. We know they're not going to have the best record. which they had last year. We know they're not going to be better defensively. So when they take those steps back, you're one of the people that is going to get credited for that decline. So you got to be lighting it up on the offensive end. Chris Paul got suspended. That didn't help. James Harden got hurt. That didn't help. So now you're on the floor and you're not as effective as you would like to be. The coach sees it that you have a history with. So, the same coach that feels like you got him fired in New York.
Yeah, he did get him
that
fired.
holds grudges. I know. I played for Mike D'Antoni my final season. He holds grudges.
Do you think a little bit of this, not 100%, but not 0%, was Mike D'Antoni revenge?
I'm not saying that it was the plan. I'm saying this is how it plays out. They weren't going to have the best record. They weren't going to be as good defensively. The only thing Carmelo could do is come in and ball at whatever role he was given. If he's not doing that consistently, they can now look to him and be like, oh, that's what's different. We added Carmelo.
Of course.
So he's going to be the scapegoat in this situation, and now he's going to end up, in theory, playing for five teams.
Where's he going to end up?
In
Really
3 seasons.
quickly, can you name a team or a couple teams?
You got to ride.
Anybody?
Hey, you got to ride the wave when you get a little bit older. Might as well see what Philly talking about.
You think Elton Brand's going to give him the veteran minimum to go out there and do what he did in Houston?
Go back to the East Coast where you're familiar. You don't have to be the best player, the second best player, the third best player. You don't have to be the best shooter.
This won't
That's
be the last
JJ
time
Redick.
that we talk about where Carmelo Anthony's going to play next, because there'll be some rumors coming out in the next couple of days.
Or Miami with Dwayne Wade. Go full circle. He played with one of his brothers and Chris Paul in Houston. See if he can latch on to Miami. But that Miami gig is dressed in overalls. That's work.
That sounds like work.
So a lot of people like
ready for that.
talking that South Beach talk. No, that ain't where they play.
Well, something tells me he won't end up in the purple and gold with LeBron either, because the Lakers, they've been quietly pretty good lately. They had Tyson Chandler. They've won 3 games in a row. They beat the Kings, and last night against the Hawks, it got a little close for comfort at the end here. You see LeBron trying to take the lead, and then, there goes the line. He'll hit 1 of 2 at least, right, Jalen? I'll miss the first one. You never miss the second one. You just make the adjustments. And then, Kyle Kuzma's working hard on the offensive rebounds on that free throw. You know why? He knows it might not go in. And then we get LeBron James dunking. Of course, they had a chance to win. And the new addition to the team, Tyson Chandler, gets the block. Jalen, big win for the Lakers. What do you think?
Shout out to Tyson Chandler, a California kid, getting a chance to play in purple and gold and be an impact player versus being in Phoenix where he was irrelevant regardless of what stats he was putting up the last couple of seasons. And he filled the weakness that they needed. Another big besides JaVale McGee that could block shots, rebound the basketball, and be a force down low. However, when LeBron James has the ball with less than 2 minutes to go and the game's undecided, I'm following him. I've been saying this for the last 2 or 3 years. You got the best player in basketball. If you allow him
can't believe we've gotten here.
If you going to allow him to cross half court and put you on your heels and initiate his offense and be a playmaker and or a finisher and close your team out, that's on you. I would put him on the free throw line, distort their timing, distort their offense, and force them to now make a decision on who's going to initiate the offense.
LeBron James has been statistically, objectively pretty awful from the line and from 3 at the end of the games. We actually had LeBron James was asked about this, and here's what he had to say about his late game free throw shooting.
I'm garbage.
And when someone asked him also about his late game 3-point shooting, let's hear what he had to say.
I'm garbage.
And then someone asked him about his performance in Trainwreck. And this is what he had to say.
I'm garbage.
I'm lying on the last one. But for real, I can't believe we're at a point where the best player on the planet, the strategy is to foul him and put him on the line.
I've said this for the last 2 seasons, in particular in the postseason. And that's paying homage to him. That's paying the percentages. That's saying, I know once you cross half court, you're going to get a bucket, or you're going to initiate somebody a bucket. So I'd rather you be where I can see you. At the free throw line.
It is, in a way, the ultimate compliment. It sounds disrespectful, but it's the ultimate compliment to his game. Coming up next on Jalen Jacoby, we will continue to cover every single game on Sunday in the NFL because Jalen Rose insists that we do.
So they have Kawhi Leonard. The Sixers are third, based on what we just discussed. And don't dismiss the Milwaukee Bucks. They probably have the best player not only in the conference, but a front runner gonna be one of the top players as it relates to like all NBA consideration.
Of course.
In the Greek Freak, I appreciate how Lopez has reinvented himself as a player that would post
really
up,
shoot threes.
that can now really shoot threes,
as we saw over the weekend. And quietly, no one talks about this. Malcolm Brogdon has really improved from last year.
Yes.
Malcolm Brogdon has been playing really well this year, and obviously Chris Middleton is having a little breakout year, going to be an all-star.
Absolutely. So those are the teams. Indiana's going to be in the conversation beyond that, but those are the top 4 teams in the conference.
So when I look at this, I just think, are the 76ers going to give Jimmy Butler this deal? Because I think, for now, it's not. When you see Paul George in a contract year, is he going to stay? Is Anthony Davis going to stay? What's going to happen with KD? Like, those are kind of obvious questions, but this one's a little different. It's like, are the Sixers going to want to give him 5 years, $190 million? Do you think that's a done deal?
I'm going to give you a different way to look at it. Yes is the answer to that question.
Okay.
Because of what I said to begin this conversation. They're in the same conference as the Boston Celtics, who, when you look at their roster, they're set now. When you look at their assets, they're set for the future.
Oh, yeah.
And they're going to be able to continue to have what it takes to bring in other great players that they see have potential to build on what they've done. So if you're going to be in a conference with them, you got to now go after the best players. And so that's what Philly's able to do. We have Simmons, we have Embiid, we have Butler. We have 3 of the top 6 players in this conference. That makes us a legitimate contender. Now, building out the roster, supplementing your weaknesses, getting shooters, all of that type of thing is going to come with it. But you definitely pay Butler because you already paid Covington $70. You traded him. You wasn't going to give a big deal ultimately to Saric. So you save that money and you give it to Jimmy Butler. And that's what Minnesota was thinking. Now, I don't think Minnesota did good in this trade, but let me tell you this. What they were thinking was, we're not a destination spot for free agents.
No.
So I want to get a guy that's already under contract.
Covington.
In Covington, that's a 3-and-D guy.
He's a prototypical 2018 NBA role player. Like,
No
he's
question.
exactly what you want right now in the NBA. You're not going to have 5 stars to be your starting 5. I love Covington as your 4th best player in your 5.
And he's Tibbs' kind of guy, self-made like Jimmy Butler was, came out of the D-League. And then Saric is a big that can shoot threes and stretch the floor. You put him alongside Karl-Anthony Towns. He's still on a rookie deal. I have assets as the coach. That's also the GM that can put players out there, and Minnesota's actually going to be better.
You think so?
Have you seen Minnesota play this season?
I've seen him play with Jimmy Butler.
Okay, they're going to be better without Butler. These guys are going to give you more points. They're going to give you more three-pointers, and they're going to give you the opportunity to allow Karl-Anthony Towns and Wiggins to flourish who they want to build a team around.
What did Karl-Anthony Towns text Andrew Wiggins when he found out that Jimmy Butler was officially traded?
He's like, you still getting the max? I'm still getting the max? He gone? Cool.
When we come back on Jalen Jacoby, the Patriots looked very pedestrian against the Titans. That and much more from the NFL right after this.
When you don't like someone, you go at them harder. I don't care what anybody says. That whole I go at my brother harder stuff, no, that's not accurate. If Larry Brown was driving to the hole, I would file him different than Juwan Howard.
Monday morning, you insist that we cover every single game that happened in the NFL so every single fan base gets their team spoken about.
Because so many times in the national media, we only talk about 5 teams and 10 players.
All right. Well, we're going to hit them all, 30 seconds apiece. We are going to start with the Chiefs and the Cardinals. The Chiefs won. I'm not going to wear my homies thing, but it was closer than everybody thought it was.
I got to give props to Larry Fitzgerald, second all-time in yards for a receiver. That's awesome. I wish he would have had the Cardinals trade him. I just hate to see him waste away his career. But this, again, is all about the explosiveness of the Kansas City Chiefs. Yesterday, it was Hill's turn.
Yep. And then let's take a look at Hill's touchdown, and especially the aftermath, because that's something that I really enjoyed. He scored his touchdown. We'll see it right here with a nice pass from where my homies.
Where they at? Where they at?
And then everyone's like, well, what's he doing? He grabs the camera and then films his teammates celebrating. First of all, not the greatest framing of the shot there, Mr. Hill.
I don't think he cares.
I don't think he's going to take the cameraman's job.
I don't think he cares.
What do you think about this? Do you think he deserved a penalty, and will he get a fine?
He deserved a penalty. He will get fined. He's going to laugh about it. It's well worth it. They're having a really good time living their best lives right now.
The Saints won a great game against the Rams last week. This time they were faced up against the Cincinnati Bengals, who've been up and down this year, but I didn't think the game was going to go like this. The Saints waxed the Bengals. They put up 51 points on the Bengals. Jalen Rose, are the Saints the best team in football?
They're playing like it.
They are.
I'll tell you, they're playing like it. I would still have to go with KC, probably, because I think they're going to get Eric Berry back. But, man, the Rams have so many weapons. Yesterday, Mark Ingram got a chance to get going. I was happy to see the Flint native carry for 100 yards. Kimura's still getting his numbers. Yep. The sky's the limit for their potential. Michael Thompson.
Don't look now, but the Cleveland Browns are hot. They fired everybody.
Is that Michael Thomas?
I don't know. They fired everybody, and they were playing against the Falcons. The Falcons who had a chance to turn their season around with this game, and they might have even just kind of like looked past the Browns a little bit because the Browns look good. The Browns hung up 28 points on them. The Falcons weren't really in this game. Jalen Rose, when Baker Mayfield was asked about his performance and how he felt pregame, here's what Mr. Mayfield had to say.
So you know that in warm-ups, if you're going to have a day like that, like a starting pitcher or something?
No. Warm-ups not really, but when I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous.
I kind of love Mayfield. I love when I woke up in the morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous. Did you feel dangerous when you woke up this morning?
Every morning. That's the goal. However I'm feeling before I get out of the bed is one thing. When my feet hit that floor, danger! Danger! Get on the floor! Absolutely. I was going to correct you earlier, but I'm glad we go through every game for this exact reason. This was the worst loss, not the Patriots.
Yeah, that's a good point.
This was the worst loss.
That's a good point. Moving on to a team who is challenging the Patriots in the AFC. The Chargers beat up on the Raiders. The Raiders are just a mess. What do you think about this game?
I think that the Raiders have lost by 14 in like the last 5 or 6 games.
They're not even in games.
That has never happened.
They're not even in games.
In the history of that franchise.
It's hard to be John Gruden to get a 10-year deal, and this is year one. Like this is where we're gonna do. After the game, he was talking about, well, we're gonna work hard and we're gonna look at the film, we're gonna prepare for next week because hard work is gonna be the foundation of this franchise. Because it ain't players right now.
Once they lost Matt, and then obviously losing Cooper, but they're gonna have some draft picks, I guess, next year.
The Packers beat the Dolphins. They dominated the Dolphins. The Packers are sneaky 4-1, and in the Lions division, anything can happen. Is the Packers season more hopeful or hopeless at this point?
We talked about it the last couple of weeks. Pull up the tape. What will unlock the Packers offense would be
running back Aaron Jones.
Like, they were doing this thing by committee, and I understand you trying to get so many people involved. And coaches do this when they have a young, talented player. They feel like they don't want to give them too much too fast. Now, all of a sudden, Aaron Jones is running, giving them balance, had 2 touchdowns.
They got Aaron
Adams
Rodgers
had 2
back
touchdowns.
there, too. Aaron and Aaron connection.
No
it was
doubt
against
about
the Rams 2 weeks ago. It was like Aaron Jones should be their featured back. It was pretty clear at that point. Oh, wait. I'm sorry. The Lions had a game this weekend. And Mitchell Trubisky going into the game had never beaten a division opponent. So I was like, maybe they got that going for him. Jalen, the Lions looked awful. They looked awful against the Bears. Do you have any words or sounds you could make about this game?
Yeah.
Let's move on. Let's not even talk about it. I can tell you're getting emotional. Let's not even talk about it. Moving on.
Thank you.
The Colts beat the Jaguars. The Jacksonville Jaguars are now 3-6, Jalen Rose. This is a team that went to the AFC Championship last year. Not only that, they led the Patriots in the AFC Championship. They were just a quarter away from the Super Bowl. What happened with the Jacksonville Jaguars?
The Jacksonville Jaguars don't have the level of autonomy to make mistakes offensively. They don't have, in today's game, what's considered a number 1 receiver. They did get Leonard Fournette back, which gives you a level of balance. but they're not getting quality quarterback play from Blake Bortles, and I think that has affected the defense to a point where they're not performing to their capabilities. And they're making Mr. Ramsey unhappy. And you know I don't like to see a Jalen upset.
I know you don't like to see a Jalen upset. I don't like to see a Jalen upset either.
Trà chanh ô long Tea Plus hoàn toàn mới với vị chanh ngất ngây. Trà chanh ô long Tea Plus đã ngon còn nhẹ.
Wax the Jets because I want to save time because when we come back, we'll be talking about Zion. I love watching Zion Williamson play basketball. We're going to discuss it after this.
And he's accomplished so very much. But injuries catch up to you.
Welcome back to Jalen and Jacoby. Jalen Rose, I can't lie. The Duke basketball game and the NFL games all started at the same time. What was I watching? Zion!
ESPN.
Oh, my God. Coming into the season, we knew he was a great dunker. We knew he was a great leaper, a great athlete. But he does so much more than that. Watching this game, the rebounds, the effort. He had 6 blocks, 16 rebounds. He had 21 points, not in the game, at the end of the first half. Jalen, I'm 100% sold not just on Zion, but on this entire freshman class. What have you seen from them in these first 2 games?
Zion is a lion, king of the jungle. But I tell you, my takeaway from the game, other than the obvious, Army's kind of good.
Army, they were down like 6 at the half.
Army was kind of good.
They were in the game a little bit.
They balled. I want to give props to them.
Shout to them.
And shout to all of the veterans. My brother actually was in the Army. With that being said, the thing I appreciate about Zion, besides his personality and his just on-court generalship, like I watch for that in players. He's unselfish. He has a big team personality, and he tries to affect the game in all facets.
Oh, yeah, he was diving on the ground for loose balls. He gets a rebound. He's not looking for a guard. He dribbles up and looks for his teammates. In the first few possessions, he set up R.J. Barrett for 3 wide-open threes. He only hit 1, but he set him up for 3 wide-open threes.
No doubt. And I respectfully call him a bowling ball because you think about the power you put behind it when you throw it down the lane, you ain't going to get in front of it. And everything else just become pins. People just bouncing off of him.
They really do.
As he go towards the basket. And it's not out of control. It's not wild. It's not undisciplined. It's so very powerful and so very athletic that his combination of height and bulk is something that the game hasn't seen to go with a level of athleticism that's terrific.
He's just like so freakish of a prospect that you find yourself not even focused on R.J. Barrett, who might be a better basketball player, has scored more points than he has, but it's just, when you see Zion, it's just like something you've never seen before. Jalen Rose, very quickly. KD, we've been talking about him maybe leaving the Warriors at the end of the year, and a lot of people have been talking about that. There's been rumors. So what did they do? They put KD in a construction outfit. Check him out. Here's KD. And they brought him over to the construction site for the brand new arena. Jalen Rose, while he was touring, look at the outfit, by the way. The boots, the socks, everything is best. While he's looking at that arena, do you think he's thinking to himself, this is where I'm going to play basketball next year?
That's a boss move by the team.
Yep.
No doubt about it. Because a couple of things. You get him in front of the Chase folks, who's a sponsor.
Yep.
You get him in front of the Warriors brash. You put him in the new building, and you sell him on the fact that this could be your home going forward.
And you put reporters there, too. Like Nick Riedel, who works for us, it wasn't a mistake. He didn't just happen to be there that same day.
And all of that is not going to matter when it's time to choose. Because once KD decided to leave Oklahoma City, he let everybody know he was controlling his own destiny. 2 championships, 2 finals MVPs. If he's able to secure 3 and 3, I think he may bounce.
Well, we're done for the day, but we have a very special group of guests joining us, my children.
Thank you.
And we'll be back tomorrow on Jalen and Jacoby. Why is that, kids?
We give the people what they want.